Shodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Shodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Yamunatiravana Chari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janamalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janamalabha Girivaradhari Shodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Shodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Jai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sandhivadi Paschachirasata Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So I decided that we would discuss today and tomorrow we would discuss verses on the holy name. And so the verse on the board, that will have to wait till Monday. And I just have to find the verse I'm looking for. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, text 24.
Sorry. Which one? 2, 3, 24.
So, I will read the Sanskrit. I can find it. So long purport. Tadasmasharam hridayam patedam
Tadasmacharam hridayam batedam
yad griyamanar harinamadeya
harinamadeya
navikriyetata yada vikaro
navikriyetata yada vikaro
netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha
netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha
Tadasmasharam hridayam bhatedam
Tadasmacharam hridayam batedam
yad griyamanar harinamadheyai
yadriyamanamadeyai
navikriyetata yada vikaro
navikriyetata yada vikaro
nitre jalam gatra ruheshu harshaha.
netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha.
Somebody want to try it?
Tadasmasaram hridayam batedam
Tadasmasaram hridayam batedam
yadgrihyamane harinamadeyam
yadgriyamane harinamadeya
avikriyetata yada vikaro
navikriyetata yada vikaro
netre jalam gata ruheshu harsha
netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha
Tadasmasaram hridayam batedam
Tadasmasharam hridayam bhatedam
yadgrihyamane harinamadeyai
Griyamana Harinamadheya
Navikriyetata yada vikaro
Vikriyatata yada vikaro
Nitre jalam gatra ruhe suharsha
netre jalam
Taruheshu harshaha
Tadasmasaram hridayam batedam
Tadasmasharam hridayam bhatedam
yadgriyamaner harinamadeya navikriyetata yada vikaro
Yada vikaro
netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha
Integalam riheshu. Ladies?
I don't have it on
Oh, okay. Word meanings. Hold on. Tat, that. Ashmasharam
Ashmasharam
is steel framed.
is steel framed.
Hridayam,
Hridayam
heart.
heart.
Bhata idam,
Bata idam
certainly.
certainly
Certainly that.
that.
Yat,
Yat
which.
which
Griyamanai,
griyamane
in spite of chanting.
in spite of chanting.
Harinama,
Harinam,
the holy name of the Lord.
the holy name of the Lord.
Dhyayai,
Yai,
by concentration of the mind.
by concentration of the mind.
Na,
Na
does not.
does not.
Vikriyeta,
Vikriyeta
change.
change.
Ata,
Atha
thus.
thus.
Yada,
Yada,
when.
when.
Vikaraha,
Vikaraha,
reaction.
reaction.
Netre,
Netre,
in the eyes.
in the eye.
Jalam,
Jalam,
tears.
tears.
Gatraruheshu,
Gatarudeshu,
at the pores.
at the pores.
Harsha,
Harsha,
eruptions of ecstasy.
eruptions of ecstasy.
Translation. Certainly that heart is still framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name with concentration, does not change, even when one displays such signs of transformation as tears in the eyes and ecstatic standing of hairs on the end. Hairs on end, excuse me. What? Different translation? This is probably a more recent translation. It's Veda based, 2017. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, a gradual process of development of devotional service is being presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotional service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed, and a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in his universal form for beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God, through the material manifestation of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu, the Supreme, who is present as the Supersoul in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose. In other words, Prabhupada's just saying for people who aren't ready for bhakti, they have to conceptualize God as the universe. Let me just go to the next paragraph, because it's more relevant to our topic. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relation with the Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment, by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. Vidhi bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands, and the legs, as already explained here and before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest the change of heart. If there is no such change, the heart must be considered still framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. How does that make you feel? We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional duties. And if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of Godhead. So Prabhupada saying by chanting properly, you'll come to the stage of bhava, and you'll be experiencing these various stages of ecstasy, and also your heart will melt. Now, when that is supposed to happen, that's another topic. For those who are more advanced, that can happen in a week. For those who are not, it may take a little longer, like a few hundred years maybe. And the next paragraph explains why. If the reaction does not take place even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered due to offenses only. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. In the beginning of chanting of the holy name, If the devotee has not been very careful about avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses at the feet of the holy name, certainly the reaction of feelings of separation will not be visible by tears in the eyes and standing of the hair on end. If we turn that around, then we would say, where there's Shuddhanam, where there's pure chanting, then there's ecstasy. And there's melting of the heart. Where there's less pure chanting, there's less ecstasy and melting. And when there's offensive chanting, there's no melting and no ecstasy. Basically, what Prabhupada's saying is, to the degree that the devotee is offenseless in his chanting, to that degree he will experience bhava. And it's almost that Prabhupada's saying it's to be expected, and if there's no bhava, we have a problem. Like, what's wrong with you, Prabhu? Why aren't you crying when you chant? What's wrong? Have you made offenses to the holy name? Why aren't tears coming from your eyes? Why aren't you feeling separation? Of course, we know it's a gradual process. But basically, Prabhupada's saying, if we can become offenseless in chanting, then naturally bhava will awaken. That's the consequence. The bhava stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inertness, perspiration, standing of hairs on end, failing of the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally, trance. Finally, trance. I think I'm sitting in front of Prabhupada. I'm trying so they can see Prabhupada. Finally, trance. The Nectar of Devotion, a summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, explains those symptoms and vividly describes other transcendental developments, both in steady and accelerating manifestations. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very critically discussed all these bhava displays in connection with some unscrupulous neophytes imitating the above-mentioned symptoms for cheap appreciation. Not only Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but also Shri Gaura Nitai Ki Jai. Not only Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but also Rupa Goswami has treated them very critically. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are imitated by the mundane devotees, prakrita sahajas. But the pseudo-symptoms are at once detected when one sees the pseudo-devotee addicted to so many forbidden things. In other words, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was asked, who is chanting properly? Who leads the good kirtan? Did you like that kirtan? Was it a good kirtan? He said, Trinadapi Sunechena. The one who's most humble, he's the best kirtan leader. So, or as I say, how do you know who is a good kirtan leader? Well, follow him around after the kirtan and see what he does. Because if we're actually chanting the holy name, then at least the symptoms of detachment and following regulative principles should be there. Okay, ecstasy may come later, but at least there should be proper symptoms, right? That's what Prabhupada's saying. So he's saying, if after chanting for so many years one is still materially attached, something is wrong, some offenses are being made. Because it's the 10th offense to maintain material attachment. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains what that material attachment means. It means thinking, I am the Purusha and I am the Ishvara. I'm the controller and enjoyer. So said. Or he says, to think I am the body after chanting, to identify with the body, to think in terms of I and mine. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. That's the offense of maintaining material attachment. So Prabhupada's saying, if we're chanting properly, that should go away. And if it's not going away or it's increasing, then we have to go back to square one and consider that I am making offense to the holy name, and the holy name is not Therefore, I'm not becoming purified by my chanting. For example, I think it was yesterday or the day before we were talking, or the purport was talking about purified senses, and so we're saying, in the scripture you find stories of someone like the four Kumaras who smelt the fragrance of tulsi and became purified, or someone who takes charnamrita, gets a spiritual body, or sees Lord Jagannath and is liberated. And then naturally we think, well, I've done all that, and what happened? Or Mahaprabhu sees Lord Jagannath and he faints, and he experiences all the ecstatic symptoms because he's seeing Krishna. So, and I'm chanting Hare Krishna, and maybe the same thing, the same symptoms that the great acharyas are experienced by chanting, I'm not. So what does it all mean? Well, it's depending on the purity of the senses. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the holy name, it's not the holy name unless it's chanted properly. And it's just like Krishna's in the deity, but who can see that? So if I can see it, there'll be some connection, some emotion, some bhakti, something will go on in my heart and my mind if I have some experience that Krishna's in his deity form. But if I have no experience, then I just come to the temple, I see the deity, and there's not much that happens. So it can happen with prasadam, it can happen with charnamrita, it can happen with seeing tulsi. You see tulsi and like, okay, nothing. Smell a flower, nothing. See the Murti of Prabhupada, maybe not much. Or the opposite could happen. You see tulsi and there's some emotional experience or connection, immediately you bow down, you pray. Same with the deity, same with Prabhupada, same with prasadam, same with tulsi. So it's the same with the holy name. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur both said that you can be chanting the holy name but not chanting the holy name, just like you can be seeing the deity but not seeing the deity, because you're only seeing wood, right? Which is described in our Shastra as those who have a hellish consciousness will see the deity as wood, see the Vaishnava belonging to a caste, commit offenses to the Vaishnava, see the holy name as something just ordinary sound. So that's why they can't realize the spiritual nature of the transcendental. So that happens with the holy name also. So that means if we're chanting and then these symptoms of detachment are not there, then we're not chanting properly. We're not realizing the transcendental nature of the holy name. When Lord Chaitanya met Srila Ramananda Roy of Kavar on the bank of the Godavari, the Lord developed all these symptoms, but because of the presence of some non-devotee brahmanas who were attendants of the Rai, the Lord suppressed these symptoms. So sometimes they are not visible even in the body of the first-class devotee for certain circumstantial reasons. Therefore, real steady bhava is definitely displayed in the matter of cessation of material desires. So in other words, there's, like if you go to the Nectar Devotion, you'll see there's listed 10 symptoms of bhava, and it's all external behavior like detachment and engaging 24/7 in the Lord's service and so forth. And then you have manifestations, more physical manifestations like tears and hair standing on end and voice choking, like which can be imitated by anyone. But the other symptoms can't be imitated. So now Prabhupada he's going to the symptoms that can't be imitated. So he's saying that Mahaprabhu did not want to exhibit the bhav in front of ordinary people, they would misunderstand. But the other symptoms, is displayed by cessation of material desires, utilization of every moment in the loving service of the Lord. Eagerness for glorifying the Lord constantly, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, complete detachment from material happiness, and pridelessness. One who has developed all these transcendental qualities is really possessed of the bhava stage, as distinguished from the stone-hearted imitator or mundane devotee. So bhava, interestingly, is what bhakti is all about. So when you begin bhakti, you have to have some bhava, some drop, something, some attraction, some feeling. And as we progress in devotional service, the bhava increases. And when the bhava is complete, that's called the stage of bhava. So bhakti is actually a development of bhava. And so that's why when you read these symptoms of bhava, you might say, wait a minute, it seems like a lot of devotees have these symptoms. And it's true, they do. But it's not fully manifest and steadily manifest until we reach the stage of bhava. So the bhava is manifesting, definitely. If we're chanting properly, if we're doing devotional service properly, the bhava will manifest. So the most common symptom for us is detachment from the material and attachment to the spiritual. So we have, if that's not happening, then we have to go back and say, okay, there's some problem with my chanting, or some offense I'm making to the holy name, or some offense I'm making to the Vaishnavas, or some negligence in my sadhana, in my hearing. Something's wrong, because this is a natural symptom, that I'll become detached. And some emotion, some attraction, some feeling in some seed form will be there for bhakti, for chanting, and so on. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner and is friendly to everyone can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. And the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc., as mentioned above. The neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotional service, are invariably envious, so much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulations without following the acharyas. As such, even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. So, what Srila Prabhupada is saying is, if one is not following a bona fide process, one is not following a bona fide acharya, one is committing offenses to the holy name, they can chant all day and not much happens. That's interesting, isn't it? Even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. What does that mean? They're not actually chanting the holy name. Their chanting is offensive due to the fact that they're not following the acharya and not following the proper process. Therefore, the show of tears in the eyes, trembling, perspiration, or unconsciousness is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the return path home back to Godhead will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. So, I think the most significant thing here is that one can chant, 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 and keep chanting. And if one is making offenses or not following the acharya, then the heart remains like stone. And then we won't see any manifestation, not even the manifestation of crying or tears or so forth, but the manifestation of detachment. The crying, as Prabhupada said here, that can be imitated. But there won't be a manifestation of natural detachment. And the other point Prabhupada's making is that the goal of bhakti ultimately is to melt the heart. And what is what does melting a heart mean? There's a verse in Bhagavatam, and it said, I think it was when Krishna went to Dwarka, and the women saw him, it said their heart melted on the pot of attraction. So their attraction was the pot, and their heart was in the pot, and their heart melted. So there are several references in our books to melting of the heart, and sometimes it's compared to gold, because gold, as far as I know, is the softest metal, or a very soft metal, so it melts very easily. And of course, butter melts very easily. So sometimes the heart of a pure devotee is compared, or advanced devotee, to butter or gold. And here we see that the heart of one who's making offenses to the holy name is compared to steel. Yeah, it's difficult to melt, or sometimes stone-hearted. And so it's an interesting meditation to think that when I'm chanting, really the goal of my chanting is that my heart will melt in attraction, on the pot of attraction. That's what we're on, the pot of attraction for Krishna, which means the pot of attraction for the name, because Krishna is the name. And we're praying that maybe there'll be some taste for the holy name, and maybe there'll be some sprout of these symptoms of bhava, and all the bhava symptoms. Bhava means emotion, so there's symptoms which are byproducts of emotion. Like when you cry, that means intense emotion, isn't it? When your hair stands on end, intense emotion. When you roll on the ground, I don't think any of us have ever been in a state other than pain, where we would roll on the ground from being so happy. Have you ever done that? You're so happy. You go to the airport and, your wife comes back, you haven't seen her in a year, and you roll on the ground. I've never seen. But, yeah, when ecstasy comes to a certain point, you might not know how to deal with it, and you roll on the ground. So, maybe little something should be there for Krishna if we're chanting properly. And in fact, if we're chanting properly, something will be there. I can't say we'll feel like rolling on the ground, but we'll feel something. Sometimes devotees say, when I chant, I don't feel anything. Well, that's unfortunate. That would be a sign of offensive chanting. Or maybe a sign of a very young devotee, maybe not offensive, but very young. But if we're talking about most of us who've been chanting for a decade or two or three, something should be expected. If we're not feeling something, then we go back to square one, as Prabhupada says, offenses. Some offense is being made. So we pray to the holy name, please chisel my stone heart, please melt my steel heart, please let me experience some taste. Now, one of the most interesting things I've read about the holy name is that Thakur Haridas prayed to Mahaprabhu, please give me a taste. And he's chanting 192 rounds, so you would think he must have a taste. But it's also explained that the word taste and the word love are synonymous. When taste is used in this context, where one who has pure bhakti is praying for a taste, say, please give me love. But still, for us, as we know, taste is a symptom of advancement, and taste is important. So we can pray, Krishna, please as Thakur Haridas did, please give me a taste for chanting, because I don't have much of a taste, or I don't have any taste. Please give me a taste. We once had a long discussion about this with one devotee who objected to this idea. He said, no, because if I pray for a taste, then it's material. I'm praying for my own happiness, my own gratification. No. But we know the symptom of advancement is taste. So if I'm praying for a taste, all I'm praying is, Krishna, get me from anartha nivritti or nishna, get me at least to ruchi. And then from ruchi, if I'm praying for a taste, it just means I'm praying for a sakti. And if I'm in a sakti praying for taste, it means I'm praying for bhava. If I'm in bhava praying for taste, it means I'm praying for prema. And if I'm in prema praying for taste, it means I'm praying for more prema. That's how we understand it. Otherwise, why would Thakur Haridas pray for taste? Because bhakti is dynamic. So You can always get more. And because he's a pure devotee, he thinks he has no taste. That's a symptom of his humility. So definitely we can follow in the footsteps and pray for some taste. So we can stop here. 27 minutes, which is, yeah, it was about a half hour. That's usually Prabhupada spoke for a half hour. Did you know that? Almost, you can set your watch to Prabhupada's lecture. It's amazing. It was like 29 minutes and 40 seconds one lecture, and 29 minutes and 10 seconds one lecture. Yeah, it's amazing. So any questions or comments? Yes?
So this stage when our son is experiencing, the devotee is experiencing tears and all these ecstatic emotions, is that Suddhana?
Yeah, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It wouldn't happen until there's Shuddhanam, but it's on a continuum, so there are different stages of Shuddhanam. And there's different stages of bhava. Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama. Everything's Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama. So, it's on a continuum. So, someone might be on a very high stage of Namabhas, which is a higher stage than the beginning of Namabhas, which is the gateway to Shuddhanam. And so, in a broad sense, Shuddhanam, you could chant Shuddhanam right now if you just chant with no desire other than pleasing Krishna. That could be considered Shuddhanam on the most fundamental stage. But that kind of Shuddhanam is not a manifestation of bhava, or it's not going to bring you bhava, but it's pure. Like Prabhupada said, my disciples are pure devotees. So they're pure because they follow purely. The one disciple of Prabhupada was asked by Prabhupada to chant on the initiate's beads. So these are his godbrothers. And Prabhupada said, if you follow my order to chant on the beads, then your chanting will be pure. So there's a broad definition of you could say that's Shuddhanam. He was chanting Shuddhanam because he was following Prabhupada's order to chant sincerely. So he chanted sincerely, but that's not the Shuddhanam that will cause the tears. That has to be more of a realized state. Yeah. So the goal is Shuddhanam, and Shuddhanam will bring love. The holy name is love, and it will bring love. But it has to be chanted purely. And so you have to chant impurely to chant purely. It starts Namabhas, and then you can even go down to offensive. When you begin chanting Hare Krishna, there's no offense. You're just chanting. You don't know anything. So you're a Namabhas. Then you learn the 10 offenses. Now you have the opportunity to commit the 10 offenses. Because you have to avoid the 10 offenses to come to Shuddhanam. So even if you start with Namabhas, you have to learn the 10 offenses. Otherwise you'll stay forever in Namabhas. Hare Krishna, get a haircut. No, that's Namabhas. Yeah. So then you learn the 10 offenses, so you learn to avoid the 10 offenses so you can come to Shuddhanam. And now you have the opportunity to commit the 10 offenses because you know what they are. And knowledge is necessary, but knowledge also implicates us. So we have to avoid them, so we have to know what they are to avoid them, but then we're implicated now when we don't avoid them because we know what they are, so then it becomes offensive. So if we chant offensively, then this verse is there, steel framed. Nothing. We don't feel anything. So if ever you feel nothing when you chant, then you can think of this verse. You can think of this verse if you're chanting and there's nothing going on. Ashmasharam, steel framed. Yes?
Just to follow on from that, sometimes those devotees and what have tears in their eyes performing kirtan.
Will have what?
Have tears in their eyes performing kirtan, Harinam, etc.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's asking, if you see a devotee with tears in their eyes, what is it? A lot of times when devotees are crying, they're crying because they're feeling Krishna's mercy and affection, and they're reflecting on how, for millions of lifetimes, they've run away from it, and how much they want it, and how resistant they are to it. And so sometimes it makes them cry when they're chanting because they feel that they're ungrateful and Krishna's so merciful, and that emotion. So that's fine, and that's where we're at. It's not what's referred to as bhava per se, but it's some bhava, it's some kind of emotion. And it's not that we can't have emotion on any stage, but it should be according to our level. And so that's generally why a devotee would cry. Or the kirtan is, it's very beautiful. They're being moved by the beauty of it, and they're just appreciating it. And so as we progress, the senses become purified, then the holy name will be appreciated more. And it also could be that they're progressing to the point that maybe in that kirtan they were appreciating it in a way they've never appreciated. It doesn't mean Shuddhanam, it just means higher than where they were. And they're just feeling Krishna's very kind to give them some taste. Or they're feeling very fortunate to be in the kirtan. Or they're just overwhelmed by the presence of the Sangha, of Vaishnavas, the deities, and the bhakti of everyone. And they're just feeling grateful. There could be many reasons. Aside from faking it. But generally in ISKCON you won't generally find that, because Prabhupada has talked about it so much that if we did that, it would kind of be obvious. Especially, if we know your level of advancement, and all of a sudden you manifest something that's not aligned with your level of advancement, it would look weird and everyone would feel sorry for you that you needed to do that, and call up a local therapist to help you, deal with it. Yes?
Right. Krishnadas Kaviraj in the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that just by chanting the name of Chaitanya and Nityananda, one will immediately experience ecstasy. So,
Gauranga,
Gauranga.
Nityananda.
So is this some kind of additional factor that we should take into consideration in our chanting, that particular mercy which is available?
Yeah. Well, Prabhupada explained that when we chant the names of the Panchatattva, we can't make any offense. Because Lord Chaitanya does not recognize offenses. So automatically when you chant the Panchatattva or Gaur Nitai, you're chanting offenselessly. So that's why the ecstasy comes. And that hopefully will purify us, so we'll get closer to offenseless chanting of Krishna's name. That's the idea. So certainly we can take advantage of their mercy. But at the same time, I would say their mercy is also manifested in the holy name, so that when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, we also feel ecstasy, although we don't deserve it, we're not qualified, we're not on that level, but Mahaprabhu is trickling down that bhava through his holy name into our stone-like hearts, and that's just mercy. So, the mercy is easier to access through the Panchatattva mantra because there's no offense. But the mercy is still thickly available in the Hare Krishna mantra for just making a little effort. And like last night, we went on Harinam, and Mahaprabhu is so happy when you go on Harinam, when you share the holy name, that chanting we also experience is very powerful. Even if we're spaced out and distracted by all the things going on the street, we still feel it very powerful because there's so much mercy that he's giving. when we distribute the holy name. So the holy name is full of mercy. We just have to kind of just get out of the way a little bit, so we don't misuse the holy name, and just take it properly. Sometimes I joke that if a devotee's chanting either in kirtan or maybe even japa, sometimes the devotee may think, "Oh, I'm chanting so nicely." Okay, that's okay if that's just you and you're reflecting and you're kind of appreciating that you're focused and so on. But if you're thinking, "I'm chanting so nicely, others should notice," or maybe others are noticing, maybe others will compliment me, then the nature of our conditioning just destroys the whole effect of chanting. So if we chant with a little sincerity, then there's so much mercy that comes through the holy name. It's just amazing. We say Mahaprabhu is the most merciful, he's come to give love of God. Well, how does he do it? He does it through the holy name. He's come in the mood of Radha to taste Radha's love, but he's also come to distribute Radha's love. He's not just keeping it for himself. The reason for which he comes, internal, is to taste it, and that's the same external reason, to give what he's tasting. So that's like inconceivable. And so there's so much in it that we can access if we just go a little deeper, dig below the surface of the holy name. You'll be amazed at what you find, and you'll be amazed at how it affects you. And even though we're not very advanced, still the holy name can bring out so much because there's so much there. Yes?
Regarding the verse itself, so here it said that whose heart is not changed even when ecstasy takes place. Is it possible to actually have it ecstasy
and your heart
is not changed?
Yeah.
That, I don't know. Is it not correct, entirely accurate translation, or because just kind of
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. As far as I understand, based on the purport, Prabhupada's saying, even if externally you're manifesting these symptoms, if you're not chanting properly, then your heart is still framed. It seems, as far as I can tell, it's a false manifestation. That's what he's referring to. That even if you exhibit these symptoms somehow or other, artificially exhibit them. Or, let's take it, if this is the correct translation, even if somehow these symptoms manifest, but there's no proper chanting, then you just walk out of the kirtan and smoke your beedi and go talk to the girls. So, that sometimes, Nectar Devotion says sometimes there's some shadow symptom, somebody's reflecting someone else's bhava or something, due to a past life or something. But ultimately, it doesn't mean anything unless we can see it in your action. That's something, like, okay, so you cried. Yeah, then what did you do? You went home and sat on your sofa and ate potato chips and watched movies. Okay, so.
I kind of can imagine that maybe someone around you may feel ecstasy but you feel like, wow, I'm absolutely cold. So what's wrong?
That would be normal, yeah.
That's understandable. But when your heart changes, like it's like impossible for the ecstasy to come to hesitate or cry unless heart is changed. So it's a prerequisition, first change of heart and then ecstasy. But
it could be also the perception of that person of how they perceive ecstasy.
No. Here. It's right here.
Ecstasy.
Look at. Okay. I think we got clarity. First thing is, you're going to court and the judge is trying to determine if your heart is still framed or not. And your defense attorney says, but judge, he exhibited tears, tears in the eyes, ecstatic, standing, hairs on end. But Judge, he exhibited tears in the eyes, and those are symptoms of ecstasy. But here's the word Prabhupada chose to use. The heart is still framed, even though you're chanting with concentration, or appears to be concentration. But your heart does not change. It remains still framed when one displays. There it is, displays. So, to me...
The actual word displays then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have a different... Yeah. This is a later translation. So, I think they edited this to make this make sense, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. When he displays these symptoms, artificially, falsely, or maybe displaying these symptoms to try to get some advancement in their chanting, but based on the purport, Prabhupada's saying it's fake. So even if you can fake it, still, your heart's not going to change.
In Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti describes the different degrees of ruchi, when he says when you appreciate the chanting because the singer is good and his good voice and melody is good and rhythm is good, so that's perfect. But if it's not good, then you don't feel the same attachment. But then, I mean, it's kind of makes sense. It seems to be quite clear. But then, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Gaura Lila and Dvipa Lila, we know that Gauranga Mahaprabhu would come, and if someone is wrong in the in the kind of in the Shirvazangam, if he's not qualified, then he's don't feel any ecstasy. So it's like here, like absolutely, it's not about tuning, if it's just one wrong person present. And then probably everyone experienced this thing. You may be at home, you chant an amazing job, and you think will come and will have an incredible kirtan or harinam there, and then someone there had absolutely different mentality, absolutely different mindset, and it's just whole thing just not you can share that, you losing what you have. So how can reconcile that?
I could give my thoughts on it. When Mahaprabhu was at Srivasanga, what they were doing was very esoteric and deep. And in order for Mahaprabhu to enter the feelings, or experience the feelings of separation that he wanted, he had to have certain people. And if anyone else was there, it wouldn't work. But what we're talking about with the kirtan, we have the example when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was in his last days, he wanted the song Sri Rupa Manjari sung. And so one of the devotees, who was a good kirtaniya, sang it, and he stopped him. He said, no. Yeah, Sridhar Maharaj, he said, because he felt he understood it better, and he wasn't as good a kirtaniya. And we were even told that sometimes he would ask people who couldn't sing to sing, just so we wouldn't get caught up in the tune and the melody. And this also happened with Prabhupada when some fancy kirtan leader was ready to show off and started the kirtan. Prabhupada told him to stop, and then he told a Gurukul boy who couldn't sing on tune to lead the kirtan. So he was making a point, which I think is different than at Srivasanga, because at Srivasanga it wasn't a question of singing on tune or singing sweetly. It was a question of the mood. And so what you describe in Madhurya Kadambini is there for our reflection. Do we have an actual taste for the holy name? Or do we have a taste for something?
Well, it's kind of combined. So if we good rhythm, so it helps you, first of all, draws your mind there. Okay, then there are some chances that you can go further. But if it's out of tune, or out of tune, that's even not a problem. I'm saying because I'm a professionally trained musician, so very, very sensitive to that. But you can still sweep it aside if you see someone is really sincere. Doesn't have a but he is just sincere. That's it. That's fine.
Yeah, that's
but
true. That's true.
Not much of that, not much of this, and then it's kind of a.
But then you're judging whether he's sincere or not.
Most times you can feel how much prana you put into that.
Yeah, you can feel it. But have you ever seen a devotee do kirtan and you're thinking, God, this devotee he's just leading kirtan to show off. But then we're just projecting also to some degree. But what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was saying is that on the stage of a sakti, then even if I was in Mayapur and this actually happened. It was interesting. I don't want to describe exactly what happened because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but something happened in which we could see the devotee who was chanting was acting inappropriately, even while he was chanting, and it was spoiling the mood tremendously. And I was supposed to chant after him, and it actually helped me because he was showing me what not to do. So when he was chanting, I was counteracting his chanting. In my heart I was trying to counteract the chanting because he was in the wrong mood. And so, that's there also, possibly. Yes?
In relation to one attaining or manifesting bhava in one's heart, that gives us the taste eventually for chanting. One has to have offenseless chanting. So, by the association of, or in the association of devotees that chant purely, or pure devotees, can one develop that path?
Definitely.
So is that the
is that the way
around?
No, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that one very good practice when you're chanting japa is to sit next to someone whose japa is much better than yours. And just by being next to them, you'll get infected with a bit of their mood or a lot of their mood. I've had that experience also. Not only with japa, but you'll get infected by other aspects of their bhakti. One of the things that we notice with good association is it immediately kind of clarifies for us, it clarifies for us where we're lacking by being with a person who's not lacking what we're lacking. And we may not know what we're lacking until we're around the person who has what we don't have. And then we realize, oh, okay, this is how you're supposed to chant. I didn't know that. Or this is what you're supposed to feel. I can see, or this person hasn't been distracted for 2 hours while they're chanting. Oh, that's what japa means. I always move around and look around and I end up talking and doing this and that. He didn't. So or she didn't. That's the advantage of association. It automatically will show us where we're lacking by being with someone who doesn't lack what we lack. At least that's my experience. Sometimes you don't know until you're with someone who's not doing what you're doing or doing what you're not doing. And then you realize, oh, I should stop doing this and I should be doing that. And I didn't know that. But we had the opportunity, some inconceivable good fortune, to live in the same temple as Jayananda Prabhu. And so we could see him, and immediately by seeing his level of dedication and humility, we could understand what was lacking within us. Otherwise, we may not have really noticed, but he was on such a different level. Every day, Jayananda went to bed at 11 o'clock at night and got up at 3. And then he worked all day, did more service than anyone, and never complained and never criticized. Have you ever been around a person who never complained? You've been with them month after month after month, and you've never heard them complain about anything? And even when people complained about other people, they didn't say anything? Wow. then you might start to realize, oh, I think I complain a lot. I've just been with a person who's never complained. And how did I know? How did I realize I complain a lot? Because he never complained. And he never criticized. I think I criticized too much. How did I know? Because he didn't. And he was willing to do any seva. Was I willing to do any seva? Well, maybe I thought I was, but now I realized I wasn't, because I could see that when he was asked to do something, I thought in my mind, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. And he immediately did it, and he didn't complain. So it's like, okay, look at this standard. So it was amazing. And I saw with him, there were a lot of people who were rough and tough around the edges that joined the temple where he was president, and they became quite soft and humble in his association. And you actually could not be humble when you're around him. Because if you weren't, you stood out like a sore thumb. If everybody's rough and tough and arrogant and so forth, you don't stand out. But when you're around someone like Jayananda and you're not very humble, it stands out like anything. So that's the value of association. Yes?
Well, I think we can get hung up on the idea of ecstasy, or a certain misunderstanding of what ecstasy means. Literally, it means out of the static. And the fact that we're engaged in Krishna consciousness in any way is ecstatic. Because the static of life is eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and all that has to be done to maintain those things. And although it seems very active, like you say, you're out on Harinam, and you may be distracted by all kinds of things that are going on in the street. But it's actually a static situation. Nothing new is happening. It's all the same thing, chewing the tube. But as soon as we contact Krishna consciousness, or in any way, it's ecstatic. We're out of that static life. And we come into it, and then we bring a lot of mundane assessment in with us about achieving things. Because
can I repeat for the Bhagavad-Acharya is saying that ecstatic means something is not static, it's dynamic, it's moving, so everything is ecstatic, especially prasadam.
Yeah.
That was ecstatic prasadam. And that we bring mundane conceptions which we use to make mundane assessments, and
we think that, or if I do this, I'll get that. This is the mundane situation. If you get a certain percentage, then you've got a distinction, and you get you stand first in your class, and all of these things in the mundane world. But in spiritual life, everything depends upon the Krishna's reciprocation. The Krishna's totally independent, supremely independent. There's a discussion between Haridas and Lord Chaitanya where Haridas is saying to Lord Chaitanya, my Lord, all the devotees know who you are. You pretend that you're just a devotee, but we know you're the Supreme Lord. And that you've come to reciprocate with your devotees. And then he said, but I can understand also, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, supremely independent, nobody knows which door you'll come through. So it's like, it's not a game that we're engaged in, that if you do this, 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 and this, then you'll get this. Because you may do so many things with the wrong motivation. And you can't fudge it, you can't fool Krishna.
yes.
Krishna knows what you want. In fact, everything is a reciprocation of Krishna. Even our forgetfulness of Krishna is Krishna's reciprocation with our desire to forget him.
Yes.
So everything depends, therefore, upon how Krishna sees you. And the only way you can do that, therefore, is, as Lord Chaitanya says, is actually practice humility. Practice humility in every situation, that I'm only here by the mercy of the Lord and His devotee. And if it were not for that, I wouldn't know any of this. I wouldn't be able to do any. This could have been the other side of the moon. It doesn't make any sense without the mercy of the devotee.
Let me explain. So, Bhagavad Gita is saying that in the material conception, you manipulate how you can rise, and you think, if I do this, I'll get this, and if I do that, I'll get that. But in Krishna consciousness, you can't force Krishna to give you anything. Everything happens by His mercy. And His mercy comes to the humble, and it comes to those who want it. And when He gives it, everything happens. And there's a story, one devotee had left Prabhupada and taken shelter of another guru, and outside of ISKCON, many gurus will say, you have to chant 64 rounds to get love of Krishna. And this devotee actually wrote a letter to Prabhupada and told him that. And Prabhupada said exactly what you're saying. He said, you can't force Krishna. You can't force Krishna to give you love. He gives it, not because of a number of rounds, but He gives it because He gives it. Because you deserve it, you want it. Yes?
There's another point I want to make, and then I'll tell a little story, if you don't mind.
Why don't you come up here and then they can hear you? You can sit up here with me. We'll double it. Can we move this? Like Vishnu John and Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to give class together. And then everyone can see you. Thank
you. I was talking with a devotee who I'm very friendly with in England a couple of years ago. He'd just been to the 24-hour kirtan in Birmingham, and every year Satchidananda Swami comes there. And everybody knows Satchidananda Swami is always very happy and bright and smiling and obviously blissful. So this devotee, he'd been chanting for 30 years, and he came away very disgruntled from that program. And we were going together to a program. And he said to me, when does the ecstasy start? I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I was at the 24-hour kirtan the other day, and I was watching Satchidananda Swami, and I couldn't relate to it. I never feel like that. He said, when does the ecstasy start? I said, well, you're already in ecstasy. He said, what do you mean? I said to him, well, you don't feel like Satchidananda Swami, and you think, well, that's ecstasy, and you're not getting there, so stop chanting. He said, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't stop chanting. I said, well, you're already in ecstasy, aren't you? You already have your connection with the holy name. The Lord's reciprocating with you to the point where you can't stop. I forgot the points I was going to make. That was the story, but I forgot.
You were talking. Well,
you completely blew my mind bringing me up.
There's only 10 million people watching, so you can relax. So you began by talking about how Krishna consciousness is ecstatic, and I think you were making the point that everyone's ecstasy is relative to their level of bhakti. Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna reciprocates with every devotee. So this actually sheets back to what you were saying in Sydney the other week about sincerity. If you're a sincere person, that's all that really matters. If you are sincere, you'll practice humility, you'll feel yourself inadequate in so many ways, but at the same time, Krishna will reciprocate with you and give you moments of very deep experience. And nobody, there's an old song, they can't take that away from you. It's a purely subjective experience that nobody can take away from you. And actually only other devotees understand it. At the end of the movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, of Yaduba, Krishna in Vrindavan.
Oh, okay.
And at the end, the narrator says, the experience, the reciprocation of love between the devotee and Krishna is tangible and real. But to the outsider, it remains a mystery. So the association of devotees is what makes us realize, well, I'm feeling something. And then you realize, yes, you can reveal your heart and your mind to other devotees in a confidential way and have verification that, yes, this is true, this is real. Love for Krishna is, that's what we're at. Love for Krishna is not something you have to go out there and get. Lord Chaitanya makes the point that love for Krishna is dormant within you. It's our natural condition. It's our natural, eternal condition to love Krishna. And so that love becomes reawakened by the contact of a devotee. Just as, here in Australia, they have what they call the artesian basin, where there's actually a sea of water underneath the country. And so, but if you dig down, bore down into it, and then you have water in that pipe that goes down, as soon as it hits that artesian basin, there's a connection. And then you turn on the pump and up comes the water. But if there's no water in the pipe, there's nothing will happen. If your pump's on, it doesn't make any difference. That water in the pipe, that's the contact of the pure devotee. We sing it every morning here. What did we say? Prema bhakti jaha hoite advidya vinasatyate. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. And so like dormancy is there in the winter with trees. They drop their leaves and they stand there like they're dead. But then the touch of spring brings the life back up into the tree. It's natural, it's not artificial in any way. We just have to stay in the process, isn't it?
I was thinking, yeah, don't leave.
Don't leave.
I was thinking, when you were talking about love, that Krishna has love and he can give it. We just have to convince him we're worthy recipients.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm starting a business. Here's my business plan. Will you loan me $10 million? Well, okay, we have to see if you're a worthy person. What are you doing to make this business work? So Krishna's saying, okay, you want love. What are you doing to get it? Although none of that per se is going to give it to you, because I have to give it to you, but I want to see what you're doing. And if I think you're a worthy recipient, at some point, I'll give it. And maybe I'll give a little bit now and see what you do with it. Okay, here's a little Shakti. What are you going to do with it? Oh, I'm so great. Okay, forget that Shakti. Back to the drawing board. You're not ready like that. So show Krishna you're ready for love. That would be a good title for a song, right?
Show Krishna that you're ready for love.
Yeah. You want to write a song? Show Krishna.
Well, there's another mundane song that says, I didn't know I was looking for love until I found you.
Yeah.
We really don't, we've forgotten what it is we're looking for, but Krishna is what we're looking for. Because immediately we enter the material atmosphere and forget Krishna, then we're in anxiety. But we don't know what it is we're in anxiety about because we've forgotten. But forgetfulness and remembrance can only be there when there's knowledge. If you don't know something, you can't remember it, you can't forget it, because it's not there to do either with. So that's a very important point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making. Your problem, and your only problem, is you have forgotten Krishna. And in the process of forgetting Krishna, that means you forget Krishna, you forget who you are in relationship to Krishna. That's the eternal relationship. That's the eternal identity. We identify ourselves by our relationships. And we forget the love. Although the loving propensity remains, isn't it? We're trying to find love. Everybody's trying to find loving relationship. But it's all not what we want.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu, for that wonderful analogy. Just a question.
Which one?
That analogy of
The water.
person digging a hole.
Oh.
That was a very wonderful analogy, and you said the pipe which is connecting the hole to the bottom of the subsurface.
Yes.
That is Guru, the pure devotee. I'm trying to understand that analogy a little more deeper. And you said when you pour the water from the top and then it connects to the ocean below, what is that water?
That is the words emanating from his lotus mouth. That is the prema. The prema that is coming from him, ecstatic prema emanates.
Wonderful analogy.
So like, these books, they emanate from Srila Prabhupada. So they're little capsules of prema. So you have to ingest this. The prasadam we have, like you were saying, nothing like prasadam. That is prema. It is saturated with love, prema. And even though we're so dull that we don't necessarily appreciate that, the point that Mahatma just made, don't go away, don't give it up. As again, Prabhupada gives the analogy of how if you're jaundiced, the only cure is sugar candy, which tastes bitter to start with. It goes even further. Indra Swami told me that he was in Pipli once buying some tents for his festival program, and they were walking down the street, and all of a sudden they started hearing cobra, 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 and they looked around, and they were bringing this man along who'd been bitten by a cobra, and he was just in a comatose state, but they kept slapping him, and they took him to this man who is famous for getting rid of snake bite, and he was feeding the man neem leaves and chanting mantras and waving peacock feather up and down his body. But he was feeding him the neem leaves, and he was saying, "How does it taste?" And the man was saying, "It tastes sweet." Mm-hmm. The cobra venom was so virulent in his system that neem leaves tasted sweet. So he just kept feeding him the neem leaves and chanting, and the man was chewing them. And then all of a sudden, the man he passed out and he vomited all this froth up. And what had actually happened was that the neem leaves and the juices had absorbed the poison, and out it came, the venom. So that's another thing, is the anatta nivritti. Sorry? The anatta nivritti stage is a bit messy. It's a bit messy because, and this is where we have to be in the loving atmosphere of devotees, because you're going to vomit all kinds of stuff up. It's going to just come out of you. And the main thing is, let it go. It's got to come out of you. But in the coming out, your profile might look a little bit shabby at times.
So in that stage, the neem leaf is the holy name.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the vomit is the anartha.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't taste good, but it feels good after it comes out.
Yes, because it's working. The medicine is working. You don't have to know the potency of a poison or medicine for it to have an effect on you. That's why, they slip someone some arsenic in a drink and he drinks it. He dies.
Or LSD when we were younger.
Or LSD when we were younger, yes. But, Prabhupada...
That happened to the devotees.
Yes, yes. You tell that story?
I forget, what was it, John Lennon's place?
I think it was John Lennon's place.
Someone had put LSD in something and they all took it. That happened to us also. Yeah, sometimes.
But the potency enters. And the devotees in South Africa, when they were building the temple in Durban, they used to sell Hong Kong paintings to make the money. And they used to do exhibits in malls. And they were in suits and ties, they grew their hair, so that nobody knew they were devotees. But they thought, well, we should do something while we're doing this to somehow or another, give people something. So they immediately thought prasadam. So they set the exhibit up like you were in an art gallery at a showing of somebody's art, and they would give people a little plate with a little cup of red grape juice and a couple of pieces of burfi or ladu on it. And people would go around and they'd be looking at the pictures and eating and drinking. And one day, one man was there, middle-aged, older man. He was walking around looking at the pictures and he took a bite. He said, "Oh, Hare Krishna. I know this, Hare Krishna." And he put his hands in the air like this and he's going, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." And the devotees are like, "Whoa." And they took him aside. It turned out that 15 years before, he went to a Sunday feast at the Johannesburg temple. He'd never met a devotee or had prasadam since. But as soon as he tasted prasadam again, "Oh, Hare Krishna." So we should never underestimate the potency. And don't just think that all the rules and regulations and, the offenses to the holy name and the stages of development of Nama Basudanam and so on is like some kind of slippery pole that you have to climb. It's not like that at all. The whole Krishna consciousness movement, and all the rules and regulations are a huge gesture of love, the greatest gesture of love from the Lord. And He's there with you at every step. He wants you back, as Prabhupada said, more than you can ever want to go. The Krishna consciousness movement has not been dreamed up by somebody. You can't dream this up. This is a gesture from the Lord. Take it. Take it. And don't worry if you're not an advanced devotee. Don't worry about that. You see, then again, you see it bringing that idea of mundane achievement into the Krishna consciousness movement makes the concept of advancement like it becomes a game. All the rules and regulations become like, "Oh, yeah. Where's he? Where am I?" It doesn't matter where he is or you are. We're all in ecstasy. We're all in ecstasy. We're all in a bubble.
I think that the natural question is, how do I experience ecstasy when I don't experience ecstasy?
Well, that was my point to the devotee who'd been chanting for so long, thinking, I'm not experiencing the ecstasy that he's experiencing, therefore I'm not experiencing ecstasy. So therefore I said, well, give it up. And he immediately said, no, I couldn't do that. Because he's having an ecstatic experience of his own.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari. Thank you very
one
much.
Request, Prabhu's, for tomorrow. You going to be here tomorrow morning?
Well, if you